Hi all, welcome to this video where we are going to look at how to build a tic-tac-toe program that is required as part of your assignment 4. So I've just created a project called tic-tac-toe. This is the form that I have. Let's first start with adding the UI components to the form, which is what we are pretty much going to do in this part of this. In the second part, we will dive a little deeper on how to get some functionality for tic-tac-toe. Alright, let's first just change the header to tic-tac-toe. We'll call it UHCL tic-tac-toe. There are a lot of tic-tac-toe programs out there. We'll like to differentiate. Then you need to start adding some common controls. So you need to display the name of the user. So we are going to ask the name of the users here, and then go to start thing. So these are two text boxes I've added. Let's add one more label, and let's add one more label here. Actually, we may need one more label to show whose turn it is, so let's add another label here. Let's move this up, so we just say, remember in this tic-tac-toe we have to have between two players, so we'll just ask for the names. And we'll just call this, little extend this a bit. We'll call this text box text box player 1. Another thing you may want to do is we will want to make this entire window not maximized. So for example, I'll just run this, see what if I happens and it runs. I mean, these controls are not expanding in size, so this is not looking good. So let's make sure the user cannot maximize this window. We will go to the control box. We can also set the properties for X maximizable or not, or change the border type. This is what we have done. So there are a few options available here. So I think the border type will be the best. Let's simply make this a toolbox, or we'll just say control box is equal to false. But we still want the X button here. So we can go to the form border style and just say fix single, or make it a fixed tool window. This will remove all the boxes. This is what we need. And now if you see, there's, oh, why did it maximize? We need to actually change the window state to normal. That accidentally got changed. If you run this now, as you can see, there's no way you can maximize this, and if you drag your mouse over the borders, you don't get the increase the size option. Another thing we may want to do is make sure this thing starts in the center of the window, like it's starting right there in the corner. This is not looking good. So let's select another property of the form. Let's give it startup position. Let's give it center of screen. Perfect. Now as we can see, this is starting up right in the center of the screen. Let's give label 3 a name. Let's keep this blank for now. Let's give something called a status here, and just say label. So this is where we are going to update which player needs to start. Alright, now we need to add a few control buttons, and we are going to use the picture box, because in this picture box we are going to display the X's and the crosses to denote the tic-tac-toe game. Now we can also use buttons here, but we want it a little bit more simplified than that. So we need to create a grid of 3 by 3 to represent the tic-tac board. Now one thing to remember is you can also create the 3 by 3 board via code, but we are not that advanced yet. If you can do that, that will be awesome. But as of now, let's just create it manually. So I'm going to create picture board 2, picture board 3, and we'll give some spacing in between, which will automatically act like a border. And we give picture board 5 and 6. Let's shift these a little bit to the left, and then give picture board 3. We should probably also have a button here which is required just to show when to start the game, so I can select multiple controls at a time and drag them down. So let me define a button here. Let's actually extend this so that it looks a little bit neat. This button, let's call it button start, and we'll call it start game. Oops, we need to make this human readable without the word button there, so start game. Like this little, we can change the fonts and all too, so let me go back to font and increase the font size. This is 8.9. Let's make everything standard 12. 12 looks a little big, let's keep it at 10. Let's also increase this font size to 10, and that will increase the height of the controls. Let's do the same thing here. Now one thing is we need to insert some images here, right, like cross or 0. That's what we want. So how do we get the images? We can go to the internet and get those images, but the easier way is to just go to Paint. Just run Paint in your machine, and we are going to create those images. So let's first create the X. You may want to just select the text box here, and I'll just type X. Let's increase its font. Let's make it a little larger. And let's we should save this around here. Just make it a square grid, because Paint allows you to define a square. Let me just cut this out. And now let's just convert this to a square. It's more or less a square. Perfect. Now we are going to go ahead and save this. Save this as a PNG file is okay. We go here. Let me actually. So I'm going to save this in this folder here. We'll call it x.png. And then I'm going to create a new one. Let's just delete this. And I'm just going to enter 0 there. Oh. That is going a little down here, so we'll probably need to do it again. Let's first increase the size here. We have to add a text. Let's simply add O. Yeah, that's looking good. Let's just cut it and move it a little bit to the top. Oops. Control C. See, again I moved the selection before I even adjusted the location. So let's move it somewhere here. And now just make the resize the that is looking okay. Now let's just save it. File, save as, and we go it and call it O. Alright, now let's get back to our tic-tac-toe where we can give an image path here. Now remember one thing, you will have to actually define the code. You'll have to assign the images from the code. So I'll just add O here and see how that comes. And we should also import the X here in the project resource file. So these will import the two values as part of the project. Now as you can see, this is little wide. We need to make this a little bit wider. Let's change those boxes over there. Let me do this actually. I'll delete this and simply copy paste the X once I have the size defined. Now there's a way the image can adjust according to the size, but just want to make this a little different. We'll have to increase the height of the form. So let's move the status down. Alright, this is how a tic-tac board should look now. It's a little bit step on the right. Let's reduce all of this so that things are looking more consistent. Remember, you are building a UI program, and as part of that it should look good. Alright, let's change some of these to 0 just initially. Simply go there. Again, I'm just showing you how the board should come out, but in your initial value everything should be blank. Nothing should be displayed here. So I'm just showing you like a full board. Now another thing to remember is that when you show the initial board, it should come up without the X and the O's. So what we need to do is just create another image. Now there are two ways of doing this. Either we just create another blank image, or we can simply put a background of like a white background. But let me just select a white image because that will be consistent with what we are doing. So let's delete this, go and delete this also, and did I overwrote my X? Save it again. Yeah, we don't want to do that, and we are going to go to and say file save as, and we'll call it blank. There we go. Now we simply go back to Visual Studio, add the blank here. Remember, we added to the project resources, and these resources are available here. We can also add another file here where, so as you can see, I have a blank.png. I'll simply add it there, and then here I'm going to go to the image, and actually I'll have to import them into the project resources. There we go. So remember, if we directly add that blank here, that didn't work out. So we have to explicitly add it via the screen. So this way, the screen, directly via the image control. So that's another way to add it. Now, as you can see, there's a difference between the size of the X and the O's because of this blank here. So to ensure this thing stretches, there's a property that we can assign. And that property is called size mode, so we may want to just say stretch the image or just say auto size. Actually, I'll say just stretch the image because the control size should remain the same. So we'll have to do that in all of them. As you can see, when we are stretching the image, the extra gap is getting filled and things are looking much more consistent. So let's do that for each one of our controls. Alright, so this is I've shown you how a sample board looks like, but do remember that when your tic-tac-toe program start up, everything should be blank and we are going to add the 0 and X later on from code. But just for the sake of it, let's see how this looks and make sure this is running fine. This is your tic-tac-toe program. It comes up. Now let's restore it back to its original state, how it should look when it loads up initially. So all we have to do is make sure we select blank for everything, and then from code, which I'm going to show in the other parts of this video, how we can change the image. So let's simply change these back. Oops, I didn't change that back there. Alright, so now when we run this, this is how your program should load up. Now in the next part of this videos, we will show you how we can change the X and O, and when the user presses start game, how we can start playing it. Till then, thank you for watching.